to the next part of the video. Welcome to the next part of the video. In this video, we are going to learn how to add the post title, content, and the thumbnail to the front end. Okay. In the previous video, we had learned how to retrieve that data via Ajax to create the infinite scroll, and how to get the data from the REST API using Ajax request. And in this video, we'll learn how to append that content of the post title and the thumbnail into the DOM onto the front end. Okay. Just before we begin that, just want to make one small change. In the previous video, you must have learned that we had created a variable prev post link equal to load previous NA using jQuery. This is basically the link button. So basically it was once we go on to a single post, for example this one, it was this link basically. So what we want to do is we don't want to hold it in a variable, because this link will change in the DOM the moment we click on it. So for example, if I click on it, then we will get the next post. So the position of this link in the DOM will change, so we cannot hold it in a variable, otherwise it will still be pointing it to the first link, and we actually want it to point it to the next link when the next post is loaded. Hence, we will not hold it in a variable. We will go ahead and so earlier we had held it in a variable and put it like this, but while attaching the event to it, but we will not hold it in a variable and directly put this over here like this. Okay, all right, so that's that. And even here in the previous video, we had put this variable instead of the jQuery load previous A, but we'll replace the variable with this like so. Okay, all right, so these are the changes as compared to the last video. And after this, what we also don't want to do is we want to get some additional fields in the object. So if you remember in the previous video, we had got a post object as a response. So we had got this object as a response, but we didn't have this extra bit of information. So I'll just show that to you one moment. Let's get rid of this bit of code. So when we clicked on the link, just ignore these errors. We have all the information that we need. We have the title, we have the post embedded featured media details and everything. Okay, we have the content. However, what we really want to do is that the moment you click on the link and the next post loads up, we also want to know the ID of the previous post. Only then, otherwise this will show as undefined. The link will show as undefined because we won't have the ID of the previous post, because when we click on the link we should have the ID in order for us to load the Ajax request again. So it doesn't come, this object doesn't come with the previous post ID and previous post link. So what we need to do is we need to use a WordPress function which is called a register a REST field. This function registers a new field on an existing WordPress object. Okay, so on an existing WordPress object you can add some new fields. So if, for example, in the existing object that we have, we want some extra fields over here, like we want the ID of the previous post, we want the probably the title or the the link for the previous post. So we can add all of these using the WordPress function called register REST field. Okay, and this function accepts 3 parameters, out of which one is optional. Arguments is optional. It accepts the first one is the object, second is the attribute name, and third is the arguments, array of arguments. Okay, so all we have to do is go to functions.php and create a custom function called tschild register fields, and then we need to hook this function to REST API init hook. Okay, so that while getting the object detail of the post via REST API, these additional fields can be added onto it. Okay, So we're hooking this function, custom function, and inside of it, we are calling this function register rest field that we just spoke about. This function register rest field 3 times to add 3 more fields to the post object, which is previous post ID, previous post title, and previous post link. Okay, and we can pass in the previous post ID, which is the attribute name. Post is the object. As we already discussed, it accepts 3 parameters: object type, which is post, and then attribute, which is previous post ID, and array of the arguments. So we are passing a callback function. You can see we have a callback function. Okay, so in callback function, what we really want is we want this array to have a callback function that returns the previous post ID. This one should return the previous post title, and this one should return the previous post link. So I have defined this function right below over here. All of these 3 functions, get previous post ID, post title, and post link, has been defined over here. And the job of these functions are to return the previous post ID, previous post title, and the permalink for the previous post respectively. Okay, so once we have all of this information, and then we save it and we reload, and we'll go over here, then it should give us the when we click on the link. So I have not told you what happens when you click on the link, but when you click on the link, you will have an object, and later on, as we proceed further and write bit of codes, it should have those 3 parameters there. Okay, so we'll proceed further. So far on the previous video, we had gone ahead and created an Ajax request, which was returning the object, and we were consoling that object. But what we're going to do now is, instead of consoling the object, we're going to create a post content, HTML content, so that we can display that on the front end. We can append that to the DOM. So instead of consoling the object like we did in the previous video, we're going to call a function called build post, and we're going to create a function, and this is where everything happens. So we can console object over here. We create a date variable, and we use the date function, and we access the date property of the post object. Okay, and then we create a variable called featured image, and we will create a custom function get featured image and pass the object later on to get the featured image details. And then we create a variable called previous post content. This is the content that will be appended when the link is clicked for the previous post. So over here, what I've done is I've added a markup. This is a similar markup that is there on the parent theme to display the posts, content, title, and things like that. Okay, so I've used the same classes so that we have the style that are predefined, and we don't have to define them again. Okay, so we have used div generated, div date author, date. Okay, and then the object embedded. So all of these are coming from the post object. So if I refresh the page, and if I click on this, you can see that first I'm trying to access the date. So date is basically created by this. Okay, object.date is, this is the date that I'm getting over here. Okay, then by object embedded author 0. So object embedded So I just want to recap a bit. So this embed that you see over here would not come unless we pass question mark embed in the URL. Okay, so if you go to Postman and we put this URL up until posts, put the post ID question mark embed is equal to true. If I add this, then what we're going to do is we're going to get an additional field called embedded. Okay, and we will get the author name, the author details, and the featured media. So the benefit of adding this question mark underscore embed is equal to true in the URL field, we get the extra bit of content, which is the author details and the featured media details. Okay, and if you check WP featured media embed is equal to true, so and author embeddable is equal to true, which means that these things are embeddable. Okay, so what you need to do is you need to go ahead and go back to your URL, a JSON URL where you had defined only up until here in the previous video. All we have to do is just add a question mark underscore embed is equal to true. Okay, so that's all you have to do in the JSON URL on get previous post function. Once you do that, then if you refresh the page, then you should get, and you click on this link, you should get the post object data, and now you should have an extra field called embedded. Inside of it you'll have author details, featured media, and things like that. Okay, so these two additional details have been added. Now, so we are going to access object embedded property. So embedded property, then author, and then the first author is basically, it's an array, it's containing an array. So we want the first item, which is, so that's why we're saying 0, and dot name, I want the name property. So inside 0 we have name property, which is admin. Okay, so we're accessing that property. This will display the author name, and then we have h1 tag, which gets me the title. So object.title.rendered. So it's object.title.rendered. It gives me the title of the post. Then we have the content. So object.content.rendered, object.content.rendered will give me the content that will be displayed over here. Okay, and then we have the navigation, because that was the bit of code that we had earlier, because we want to create a link also. So once this content is replaced, once we click on the link, I want this link to be replaced with content plus the link again, so that we can click on that link and get the next previous post. Okay, so that's why we want a link like we had in the single.php. So we had this link and the single.php, which is this link basically. So we want to add this link as well. So we're creating a markup for that, which is nav links, nav previous, a tag, and then JavaScript void 0, so that link is not clickable. And then we are putting the data ID, and in the data ID we want the post ID of the previous post. So remember, we had used this function, which is register rest field, to get the previous post ID. We wanted this field to be added in the object, and as you can see, sure enough, we have the previous post ID. Okay, so we want to access this property of the object. So we'll say object dot previous post ID. This will give me the previous post ID over here, object dot previous post ID. Then we want the previous post title. So similarly, we can have object dot previous post title, okay. So this way, this link will be created after the content is created for the next post. Okay, and then let's get rid of this. We don't want that for now. Okay, and then we have div, nav, div. We're closing everything. Okay, now what we want to do is we want to replace the link with this content. So we have created this content with the variable previous post content, and we will go ahead and replace the link. So post navigation is let's see. So post navigation is basically this navigation link, okay, previous post with the link that we had created in the single.php. We want to replace this link. So for example, this was a single.php. We had this link. We want to replace this link with the next post content and another link to go to the next previous post. Okay, so hence we are getting hold of this element, previous post, judgment day, this entire element. Post navigation is the class for this entire element, and we are getting hold of that using jQuery post navigation, and we are replacing it with this new content that we have created. And this new content contains the date, the author name, the post title, post content, and all of that. Okay, and it also contains the featured image as well, which I will explain in a bit as to how to get that. Okay, so featured image is basically equal to get featured image object, and this is the function that I've created that I'll explain to you in a bit. Okay, but so far this is what we've got. Okay, and we are replacing with this content. we are replacing this link with this link with this entire content that we just created, containing the post title, the author name, the featured image, the post content title, and everything. Okay, so once it is replaced, we also want to re-trigger the previous post event. Okay, because now the link position has been changed in the DOM. Once we click on it, the link position has changed. There's a new link now, and the position of that has been changed now because there's a content that's come on top of that. So that's the reason why we want to add the event again. We want to reset the event on the new position of the link. Hence, we're calling this function, and that's the whole reason why we had created this function, so that it can be refreshed, and the event can be applied on the new position of the link in the DOM. Okay, so we're calling this function again so that earlier the event was applied on this link, but once it is clicked, because we are re-triggering it, it's now applied on this link, and so on and so forth. Okay, so once that is done, you can see that we have the post title, we have the content, we also have the date when it was posted, we have by admin, so we have the author name as well, and this featured image is what I'm going to explain to you now, how that comes in. Okay, so we have created a variable featured image. This function is going to return that featured image content, and we are calling this function, which is a custom function, passing the object into it. So let's get into this. Okay, so over here what we're doing is we are creating a variable called featured image ID object dot featured media. Okay, so if you notice in the object that we have retrieved, we have the featured media. Okay, and then we have an ID over here. If this has an ID, this means that this post contains a featured image, and that's why we're holding this in a variable, saying that this is the ID. Okay, and then we are creating some of other variables like featured object, image large, image width, image height, featured image, feature image. Okay, so if this post ID is equal to 0, which means that featured image does not exist, then we are saying that feed image is equal to blank, so empty string, so it doesn't contain anything, and at the end we are returning this feature image. Okay, but if it isn't, which means that featured image ID has some value like so, which means that the post has a featured image, then go ahead and create the content for the featured image. So the first thing is featured object. So we are getting hold of the embedded property, which is this. Inside of this, I want to access WP featured media, but I cannot do that by dot notation. I cannot say underscore embedded dot WP colon featured media, because there's a colon in between. Hence, to access this property, because there is a colon into it, then we will, instead of using dot notation, we will use square brackets, and inside of which we can wrap this in within quotes, WP colon featured media, and then and as you can see that this is actually an array. So I want to get the first item, because the first item has got all the information that we need for the featured media. So I want to access the first item, hence I put 0 over here. So this is going to return the array of the first item. So this is going to contain all of this item, the featured object. Then image large is equal to blank, empty string, just in case image large does not exist. So like if you go into media details and sizes, if the large doesn't exist, then large should be blank, image large should be blank. Now image width, why do we need all of this markup? Why can't we just put a source URL for the image and get this going? The reason for this is because if you go onto WordPress, if you click on any of the posts, let's say this one, now if you inspect element, you can see that this image has got a lot of things going on over here, which WordPress has applied. For example, image has a width, image has a height, then you have the source of the image, you have the class attachment 2017, so this class is responsible for displaying the image in different sizes. Then you have the alt, then you have the source set. Source set means that it will be displayed in different sizes on different screens. So you have this image link, then you have the size defined, which is 1073. Then you have this image, which is a different size with the size defined. Then you have this image with the size 768. W means width. Okay, and then so on up until the thumbnail. Okay, so there are different sizes that has been defined over here, and the reason for this is because if you check, if you go to if you go to embedded, inside of WP featured media, inside of the media details, inside of the sizes, you can see there are different sizes of the image that WordPress requires. There is one for 1024, there's for 300, 768, and 150. So you have full width, large, medium, medium large, thumbnail. So we need to provide all of these sources with the size like WordPress has. So WordPress inside of the source set attribute, it has provided all of these linked to these different sources is the full size, then you have the medium, then you have medium large, and you know, large, thumbnail, and all of that. Okay, so we need to provide all of these links, and hence what we're going to do over here is we will provide all of that information. So first thing we need is basically the image source. We can input image source over here. So image source equal to featured object media detail sizes full source URL. So we want the full size image from the object, so we want this one. So we have accessed that property by doing this. Okay, then we want the width. So we have already calculated the image width you know, by this. So if you come back over here, yeah, so I think we were here. Okay, so image width is equal to featured image dot media detail size is full width. So we're accessing the width property. So we accessing this property. So WP featured media, the first item, media details, and then the width. Media details, sizes, full, and then width. Okay, sizes, full, and then the width. Okay, so this is the property. Then image height is similarly sizes and the full and the height. Okay, so you've stored this variable. Then we are checking if the featured media has a large large size image by accessing the property of sizes, and has one property large, which means if sizes property has large, then go ahead and say that image large is equal to large dot source URL, which means sizes large source URL. Okay, plus 1024. So we are defining this particular size because in WordPress it has defined that size. If you check 1024, this is the full width. Okay, then next we are creating the content for the featured image. So we're creating a div, a single featured image header. Okay, so you can see this is the same class defined by WordPress, hence we are using the same class. Okay, and then image source featured object media size is full source URL. So again, we are getting the full size of the image by accessing that property. Then width is equal to image width, this one, and height is equal to image height, so this one, because that's what WordPress is doing as well. You can see width and height has been defined. Then we have the class, so we are using the same class as WordPress is. All of this, you can see this is the class. So you have attachment 2017 featured media image size 2017 featured media image WP post image. So all of these sizes have been defined. Then I'm saying alt is equal to nothing, it's blank. And then source set. So inside of source set, you can see that inside of source set I need to define all the different sources of different sizes of the image with their width next to it. Okay, so hence I'm going ahead and accessing these properties: full source URL, image width, W, which means whatever the full size image width is, and then adding W to it at the end, because that's what's added over here as well. You can see. Then similarly, if an image large, I'm using the image large that I've retrieved from here, and then I'm using the medium source URL for 300 width, using the large source URL for 768 width, and then thumbnail for 150 width, because these are the width that's been defined in the post object as well. So you can see that, you know, the full width is this, the large is 1024, medium is 300, medium large is 768, and thumbnail is 150. So that's what we have defined over here as well. Okay, and then finally, if you go back and check the WordPress default, size is equal to 100 VW, and that's what we have defined over here as well. And we're closing this tag, and finally returning this featured image. So if the post has the featured image, this will be equal to this content. If it isn't, then this will be blank. Okay, and that's what we are getting and retrieving in the build post function, and this is what we are adding to the post content after the title is rendered. Okay, so we have the date, the author name, and the title and featured image, because that's what's returned by this function, and then we have the content and everything else. Okay, and this is being appended. And now if you go and check, refresh the page, if I click on this link, it loads the page of the post. Sorry, it loads the post with all the information that we discussed, with the thumbnail and everything. Then we have the next link. We have got the title, thumbnail, content. Again, we have the next post, and then we have the thumbnail, content, and everything. Okay, so that's how it works. Now, in the next video, all we have to do is we need to ensure that, instead of clicking the next post each time to load the next post, we need to make this happen automatically on a page scroll. Okay, so we're going to learn that in the next video. All right, thank you very much.